I'm a traveling storyteller, roaming from town to town. Don't know where I'm going, but you know where I can be found. Standing by the fire in this quiet local tavern. I may be on my own, but it sure beats that old cabin. Oh, hello there. No, not at all. Please, join me, take a seat. Warm and dry yourself by the fire. The weather outside is quite poor, so I don't blame you for needing to dry off and warm those cold bones. Ah yes, it's nice to meet you. Me? Oh, I'm just a simple travelling storyteller, making my way through the world, stopping at towns and cities, regaling strangers with the stories I've collected over the years. You wish to hear one? Very well. 1 second, let me just grab one of my books. Yes, you see, the stories I've collected have come from people that I've met myself, their own personal stories, and then stories that I've heard through other storytellers like myself. Almost all of them I have written down so that way I can keep details as correct as possible, shall we say. Let's see. Here we go. Yeah, let's tell you this story here. This is a story about a not really personal friend of mine, but let's say acquaintance and occasional ally. Whenever I'm in his neck of the woods, that is. This story is based in the year 833 post-Divergence. This is a story about a brave young man. A brave young man who had a passion and desire for helping those who both wanted and needed the help. His story begins, or rather, this story in particular begins, on the continent of Marquette, deep within the Odiran wilds. Lying in an area known as the Heartmore is a settlement called Heartmore Hamlet. It is in the Heartmore Hamlet that our story begins. The young man the story follows is a young man by the name of Percius Ironhand, a human male in his early 20s, with neck-length, unkept dark brown hair, and short, dark facial hair under his nose and across his jawline, along with a thin strip of long, dark hair hanging from his chin. Percius lives with his parents in a relatively large home that they have built. This home also acts as the place of business, as his parents, between them, have a joint business known as Ironhand's Adventuring Supplies. Perseus's father is a former adventurer who is now a full-time blacksmith. His father, a man by the name of Darius Ironhand, comes from a long line of adventurers and blacksmiths. The Ironhands themselves are somewhat famous depending on who you ask. Perseus's mother, a quiet, unassuming woman, is an alchemist, but is also gifted with the ability to heal others. This gift itself does not seem to derive from her learning healing spells, but more an innate ability. The town of Heartmore Hamlet, the place where they live, is a relatively small and simple town. Small by relative terms, anyway. The town itself is situated within the jungles and on the marshlands that collect water due to the low elevation of the area and the large amount of rainfall in the jungles and rainforests that surround it. The town itself has a rather unique design. It has a simple outer wall for defensive purposes that consists of a stone foundation roughly 2.5 feet in height, with large wooden palisades set into the top of the stone foundation. The palisades are roughly 11 to 12 feet in height, and as palisades go, they are all topped with sharp spikes. The buildings and walkways of the town are also raised above ground by stilt-like stone structures, roughly the same height as the wall's stone foundation. All of this has been done to protect the walkways, buildings, and so on from not only the large amount of water that can collect during storms and potentially flood the town, but also to allow the unique plant life that has unique properties in the region to grow beneath some of the buildings, those that don't have basements built into the ground. The hamlet itself is mostly well known for being the home of the Twilight Mirror Museum, as well as the aforementioned unique plants. Percius' story starts on a day that seemed normal enough. He awoke in the mid to late morning to the usual sound of his father busy working outside in his workshop, the occasional tings of a hammer against metal or an anvil. Percius sits up in his bed, stretches and yawns lightly as he gazes lazily out of the window at the mist slowly floating over the top of the nearby palisades. The Ironhand's adventuring supplies is located quite close to one of the walls, or part of the overall wall. Percius climbs out of bed, steps over to his wardrobe, opens it and pulls out a simple jungle moss green tunic and dirt brown pants. As he gets dressed, he notices the smell of bacon and eggs frying away coming from downstairs. That smells nice. Percius slides on a pair of black leather boots and slowly makes his way out of his room. After exiting his bedroom, he walks down the hall, down the stairs into the main living area of the house. The living area itself is quite large for only 3 people. Percius continues to walk through the living area, past the unlit fireplace, and into the kitchen, where he's greeted by the sight of his mother, busily cooking breakfast and humming a simple tune quietly to herself. "Ah, morning, Mum," Percius says with a smile. His mother turns to look at him. His mother, a woman in her mid-50s, has long, dark brown hair that hangs down to her shoulder blades and deep dark brown eyes. Despite her age being in her mid-50s, she looks very young. She is quite slim and stands at roughly 5 feet 5 inches. "Ah, morning, Percius," she replies with a kind look in her eyes. "You better eat this quickly. Your father is waiting for you." She holds out a plate that has 2 fried eggs, 3 rashers of bacon, some fried tomato, and half a loaf of crusty bread. Percius takes the plate from her, thanks her, turns and sits down at the nearby dining table. He quickly pours himself a cup of water from a water jug and proceeds to eat and drink as quickly as he can, before standing up, handing his mother the plate and cup, thanking her with a small soft kiss on the cheek, turning and leaving the kitchen. He passes back through the living area and enters the storefront at the front of the house. The storefront is a modest-sized area, roughly half the size of the living area, maybe a bit more. Like many storefronts, it has a selection of shelves. Some shelves with large spaces between them have large chests reinforced with iron and steel. Some shelves with smaller spaces between them are layered in vials and glass jars with various coloured liquids that one would assume are potions, as well as what look like refined herbs and ingredients for potion making, as well as what may be some powdered metal as well. Alongside those shelves are a number of armor mannequins with pre-made iron plate suits, light leather suits of armor, things of that design, and a number of weapon racks with pre-made weapons in them. As Percius steps through the storefront, he gazes around at the items, noticing that there is a large leather travelling bag next to the front of the storefront. The front of the storefront itself has a single door, and 2/3 of the wall has been made into a countertop of sorts. The countertop has large wooden shutters reinforced with iron bars hanging over the top, with iron, what looks like chains but not quite, keeping the shutters above. If the chains are released, the shutters will fall down and then can be secured in place. He walks over to the large leather bag, looks out over the counter to see his father working on what seems to be a newly forged axe head. He finishes hammering on the anvil and turns towards the large sharpening wheel, sets himself down and begins to sharpen the axe. Percius checks the large leather bag, sees that there doesn't seem to be anything inside it, so he exits the storefront and makes his way over to his father. "Morning, Dad. You needed me?" says Percius as he walks over to his father. His father raises his hand, causing Percius to stop where he is. "1 second, son." "Right. Need you to deliver some arrows to Rizar by the northeastern gate. Then head out towards the Sentry Tower to meet a group of new amateur explorers who wish to rent out the lodge for a week or 2. "New amateur explorers," says Percius, annoyed. "Yes, my boy. We allow anyone to rent the lodge, and the amateurs tend to pay more. Don't forget that." Percius rolls his eyes and steps over to the store counter, reaches over it from the outside and grabs the large leather backpack he was inspecting before. He lifts it up onto the countertop, then reaches over and grabs a long wooden box from the side. He unlatches the box, opens it, and sees inside 20 to 30 finely crafted steel-tipped arrows. He closes the box, relatches it, slides the box into the largest pouch on the backpack. As Percius turns, a glint catches the corner of his eye. He looks and sees what looks like a newly made longsword and some rather light, basic pieces of iron plate armor laying on a table not far from the exit of the workshop. "Oh, I almost forgot. You'll need these when you go to meet the new explorers," his father mumbled, gesturing towards the sword and the armor. "This isn't my first time going outside the walls," said Percius defensively. "Ah, but it is your first time going up to the sentry tower near Heartmore Peak, though, son," replied his father. "And it may be close to the Sweetleaf Trail, but that doesn't mean it's safe." "Yes, of course, Dad. I'm sorry," Percius replied. He dropped the bag down next to the table before slowly donning the iron armor and strapping the sheath of the longsword to his belt before sliding the longsword into it. Just as he grabs the leather backpack and is about to put it back on his back, his mother comes strolling out of the house, holding what looks like a small cloth wrap of some kind. Clearly there's something wrapped in the cloth. "Here, son, for your trip to the sentry tower," she says with a soft smile. Percius takes it from her, unwraps the cloth, and sees inside is some crusty bread, some cheese, and some sliced cured pork. "Oh, thank you, Mother, but I won't be gone long," Percius said with slight annoyance. I know, just in case you get hungry along the way." Percius' mother smiles softly as she turns and enters the house again. Percius sighs, slides the food into a smaller portion of the backpack, ties up both that area and the large pouch that the arrows are contained within, slings it over his shoulder, and slowly heads out of the workshop and onto the nearby walkway. Slowly making his way along the side walkway towards the main path that leads through the area known as Trader's Way, Percius passes a number of small buildings, mainly residential, and one or two storerooms connected to merchant buildings. Upon entering the main path on Trader's Way, Percius makes his way down the main walkway, walking past many merchants. Merchant buildings on the Trader's Way are numerous and contain, but are not limited to, businesses such as the Silver Web, a somewhat high-end tailor shop, the Roving Storm, a general goods shop, Sunken Gifts, a shop of curiosities and sometimes unique and rare treasures, as well as many other buildings and businesses. Near the end of Trader's Way lies the Homely Hearth, an inn and tavern mostly used by the travelling traders and those coming and going from the surrounding wilds and other towns and cities that may be nearby. The Homely Hearth itself lies almost directly opposite the northeastern gate. Percius passes the homely hearth as he heads towards the northeastern gate, stopping to greet one of the female tavern servers who he has known over the many years. He has a small chat with her. She hands him a small bottle of what seems to be strong spirits of some kind, and he hands her a number of gold coins in return. She smiles brightly, blushing slightly, before turning and heading back inside the tavern. Just as Percius is about to turn away from the tavern towards the gate, he hears a voice behind him.
Percius! It's about time you made an appearance.
He turns and spots the source of the voice, strolling slowly towards him. A somewhat young, very rugged-looking orc, in dark green and brown leather armor, with a bow resting on his right shoulder, slowly heads towards him. Ah, Rysar. How are you, my friend? Percius smiles and holds his arm out as Rysar reaches him, grabbing his upper forearm and squeezing slightly.
Not too bad. Keeping myself busy with hunting and looking after my dad. Yourself?
Just tired, really. Dad's got me guiding another amateur group of explorers again.
Damn. Well, at least you can get outside the walls for a bit and make a little money.
Yeah, I suppose. Anyway, I believe these are for you, Percius says as he slides the bag off his shoulder, opens the larger pouch, and pulls out the wooden case of arrows. He holds the box out, unlatches it, and opens the box for Rysar to look inside.
Just what I was waiting for. Thanks, Percius.
Rysar slaps Percius on the shoulder before taking the case of arrows, closing it, and heading back down Trader's Way in the opposite direction of the gate. Percius smiles as he watches his old friend walk away, then turns and steps over towards the northeastern gate. The various gates of the hamlet are as simple as the wall in construction. A series of wooden palisades connected together with iron bars set across the back of the gate facing in towards the town. The bars are set horizontally for reinforcement. There is also a large iron reinforced wooden drawbar set across the center of the gate in iron brackets. There is a guard standing on either side of the gate. The guard on the right of the gate spots Percius as he approaches and steps towards him.
Morning, Percius. What's your business outside the walls today?
Oh, morning, Haran. Just heading out to the sentry tower to help some amateur explorers find their way to the lodge for Dad.
Well, stay safe out there, kid. You know how dangerous the wilds can be.
Haran nods at the other guard, and they both step over to the gate, grabbing the drawbar and lifting it slowly out of its brackets. They grunt as they do so, as the drawbar is quite heavy. They slowly carry it on their shoulders over to one side of the gate and set it down against the wall. Then they each step back over to the gate, grab a handle on either side of the gate. The handles are large iron rings, and they slowly, with much effort, pull at the gate. As the gates slowly part, it gets slightly easier as two guards on the outside of the gate, once the gate starts to open, assist by pushing from the outside. Percius nods to Haran and the other guard, thanks them, and steps out through the gate, also nodding to the two guards on the outside, who both begin to pull the gate closed again before setting themselves back down on small chairs inside a stone guard hut that is set to one side of the stone slope leading down from the gate to the marshy ground below. As the late morning sun shines through the jungle canopy and the mists hanging in the air above, Percius makes his way along the damp footpath leading from the Heartmore Hamlet northeastern gate to the nearby mountain known locally as the Heartmore Peak. At the base of the western side of the mountain lies the Sentry Tower and its accompanying camp. The tower itself has been carved into the side of the mountain and stands next to a large cave opening. Inside the cave there are a number of smallish wooden buildings and a few stone buildings carved into the walls of the cave. As he draws closer to the tower, Percius is greeted by one of the 4 sentry guards. "Morning, sir. Seen any fresh-looking explorers pass recently?" Percius asked politely. Just as the guard opens his mouth to reply and raises his hand slightly, there is a sudden cry of pain and shouts of horror, echoing through the jungles surrounding, followed by a deep, terrifying roar. Something quite unusual. The guard suddenly closes his mouth, drops his hand, widens his eyes as he looks at Percius, and then quickly says, "What? What the hell was that?" I believe that was my cue," Percius says as he draws his sword and starts running in the direction of the commotion. "Right, now, if you'll excuse me, I need to answer the call of nature. If you wish to hear more of this story of Percius, as I've technically only just started, then please feel free to order yourself a drink, some food, make yourself comfortable here, and I shall be back shortly."